I'm Jeff Nighswonger, if you don't know me. We went on a mission trip it was like probably 3 weeks ago now or 2 weeks ago. It seems like it was just yesterday, but we'll give the presentation here. I know it's up there. I don't know if they have it going. Good. All right. We had issues last year with COVID, as everybody did, so we weren't able to have a mission last year, but we're so thankful and blessed that things changed and we were able to go back again. They changed how they were doing things, so all blessed that we were able to do it this year. So let's see where I point this thing. All right, so kind of just a little overview of what we did. We had a medical outreach that we went to Quatamang and Mokomoko. Two different places that are kind of separated, but I'll show you later where they're at. When we saw over 350 patients, 20 hours of clinic, 4 days. And so, as you can see, it's like a week's worth of time, but it's a lot of travel. We basically, two out of the days we were just traveling there to get to Georgetown and back from Georgetown. So it kind of leaves just a little bit of clinic time, but we saw a lot of people over that time. Along with providing medical treatment and kind of plans for the people on what to do. We also did reading glasses and hygiene items for them, like toothbrushes, toothpaste, shampoo, soap. And there was also children's clothing that some people had made. I think some people here, and there were some people in other places in Kentucky, I believe. They made clothing and took that down there. So this is the team. I think this photo up in the left is missing a couple people, Linda and Brian, but we'll go over them. So on the right is John Adams. Grab my phone out here because I have a little written down for everybody. I can't remember everything that they... But John has been going since the beginning. He and Mark helped or started this mission, and he's been just influential and I mean, couldn't do it without him. He helps us get the medical license to be able to go down there and brings a lot of people that are working underneath him down with him to help us out. And he has been on countless medical missions, not just with us to Guyana, but all over. And I mean, very knowledgeable man. I was roommates with him, and so extremely knowledgeable about medical stuff, but ask him to keep the room key, and he won't be able to do that. He had to hand it off to me and go, I want you to hold this because I will lose it. So. Is he a doctor? Yes, doctor. And then this is Kim Johnson. She's from Tennessee. She's a OBGYN, and over her time she's delivered, Mark said, over 7,000 babies. She did surgeries, but over that time she hurt her shoulder and had to have surgery on that, and now she just does natural births. But this was her first trip with us, and she's done mission trips in Africa and Liberia, and she said that this was the most well-planned trip that she has been on. And also that the group of people that she was with just meshed greatly. I mean, she said usually there's always conflict or something going on where people are not working well with each other, and she said there was none of that here. So, and she was a great addition. I mean, one day it was Dr. John and Haley go out, and they were going on just house visits around because people couldn't make it to the clinic, and she was the only doctor there, and everything just ran smooth. And this was her first year there, so great addition to the team. And this is Haley Baker. This is her first trip to Guyana as well. And she's a third-year medical student that came with John. She lives in Kentucky, and she hasn't picked a specialization yet, but she's thinking that it would be possibly internal medicine or family practice. But awesome, great personality, great addition to the team, and had a great time. Sounds like she wants to come back and do it again. And a lot of you know Angie. This is kind of Mark's right-hand person. She does the clinic, like ordering all the medications, keeping it as well supplied. She usually goes down with Mark when he does his like teaching down there at the school, and she does the clinical stuff and make sure it's all well stocked and we have everything we need for when we come down for our mission. And yeah, she's an amazing person. And she's been on 8 or 9 trips. I don't know how many trips so far. And this is Michelle Schufert. She's a nurse from Alabama. She has her master's degree in nursing, and this was her 3rd trip. She's done medical mission work in Jamaica, and she also worked on a surgical team working on cleft palates and lips in Central America. But just one of our nurses. We had 3 doctors and 5 nurses, so. And this is Amanda. She's actually from Washington. Mark met her at it's Passport Health. So they, like when you're going out of country, you can go there and they kind of tell you everything you need to know about the country you're going to and all the things that are recommended for you to get. And Mark was getting his, I believe, a yellow fever update, and met her, and she found out what he was doing down there and wanted to come along. So I think it's the 2nd or 3rd? Second trip, yeah. But just a great heart, and I mean, as you can tell, just from hearing about what there was going on down there, that she wanted to go. And so, 2nd trip down there.
Where did you say she worked? Passport Health?
Passport Health, yeah. This is Beth Jones. She actually has her daughter is a member here. She lives in Idaho. And I don't remember where they live. They live down south.
Used to be a Libya.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's where they come to, because she actually flew with us when we flew down. So she met us at the airport, just because it's easier to kind of meet all together and go down at once. She said she could have gone from a different airport, but she didn't want to do that. So, she was a retired RN and found out about the work that we were doing, and then went and got kind of a part-time job just to go back and get into nursing again so she could be well prepared for the mission work down there. And I think this is her 2nd trip as well. And this is Linda Russell. This is her first trip, mission trip, and she's a nurse. She was a home health care nurse, and she's from the church where Mark goes, I think. Well, at least I know she was baptized there by Mark. And what was that? I think so. And another great addition to the team. She loved just being down there and being with the people, and kind of being able to see more stuff out in the world. And you guys might know this guy. Chris, this was a very emotional trip for him. He's been going ever since this has started and going with Mark, and I know that they were saying down there that this might be his last trip. And a difficult person to replace. Chris works and does the pharmacy stuff, and we're gonna miss you. Hopefully you can make it back, but yeah. What was that? Yeah, I learned that it's chaotic in the pharmacy. That's what I learned. And then, yep, Caitlin. This was her first trip. She does like physical therapy. And so she was able to kind of work with some of the kids down there that there was, I think this one girl that's here since birth, she kind of had where her head was tilted, and she worked with her, getting her different exercises to kind of get her strength back in her neck, to get it to go back to straight. But she was kind of our all-around person that was able to kind of run from here and there. She did a lot of the glasses, and reading glasses. She would help people kind of find the prescription that they need, and also handed out all the hygiene stuff, but then also helped us out in the pharmacy when we were getting overrun. So always a happy attitude. You can never really snap a picture without her posing. So it was pretty amazing to me. I mean, somebody would pull it out from wherever and she would be posing. I'm like, what's going on? And I'm like, oh, there's a photo going on over there. So it was amazing. It's a special talent. And this is Brian Hall. He is the guy that does registry and checks everybody in, but he does way more than that. I mean, the guy has an amazing personality, and just he will do shows for the kids and everybody that's kind of sitting there, the adults and kids, and usually it's like little magic stuff that he has, but he has a Bible principle for each one of his things. And I mean, they're sitting out there for 4, 5, 6 hours, and he is entertaining them the whole time. And he has some health issues with his knees and legs, and it's getting more difficult for him to move around, but he's still getting out there. And he goes with other groups as well, doing evangelistic missions. And he also, he's retired from printing publishing business, and a lot of people will send stuff to his place, and he ships it down to Guyana. So they'll get songbooks or lesson plans for the Sunday churches and Bibles, and he will find the need and where that needs to go and get it shipped to where it needs to be. So doing really great work. And then there's Bridget and I. We worked with Chris in the pharmacy, and we're able to do a lot of the medication stuff. So it was a great time for us, basically trying to fill in wherever we could.
Second time for each of you two?
Third time for me and second time for Bridget. So they kind of have it from Florida there, but because I took this from Mark. So yeah, just there in Guyana, we'll get a little zoomed in here. I have right there on the border, right where that blue dot is at, is Lethem, and across the border you'd be in Brazil in Bonfim, and then there's like the sister city there of Bona Vista. So we were there later. Here's kind of a better picture. On the very north point there with the stars, Georgetown. That's where we flew in very first. And so it took a full day. I think we woke up at like 2 in the morning or something to get to the airport. And from then till Georgetown we landed, I think, about midnight. And that's a 3-hour difference. It's East Coast time. And then we have a drive from there to our hotel. So we came here to the Signature Inn. It was kind of hectic there. We were trying to get to sleep as fast as we could because we had to wake up at 6 in the morning to catch another flight to go further south, which, as you can see right there where the more north circle is an eye.
that's where we went for the first time there. That's where the Rockview Lodge where we stay at is, and then also the Quatamong Church where we set up the first clinic is right there. And then later we traveled to Letham, which is the second circle down below. And there's a city outside there that's Mokomoko, and that's where we did the second clinic. So when we got checked in here, John and I were supposed to sleep in the same room, but apparently they checked us like we were single rooms, and I had like taken a shower, gotten into bed, turned on the AC, because I'm from Washington and it's really hot there. And so I'm getting to sleep and somebody knocks on my door, and they're like, we accidentally got you in the wrong room. So then I had to go out of that room and get in the room with John and finally get back to sleep. It was like 2 a.m. or something. So we woke up at 6 a.m. and then get driven here to another little airport. Mark had booked a plane for us. Mark and Angie had already come down 2 days earlier and were already down at the Rockview getting everything set up there. And then when you take these small planes, they weigh you and they weigh your luggage and everything to make sure that they're gonna make the flight and that you're sitting in the correct spot in the plane. They give you the right seat, so they don't want to make it too nose heavy or too tail heavy. So, but I mean, they're really good pilots. I mean, I felt like the landings that they did were better than some of the commercial airline landings. And this is when we've landed and at the Rockview. All of us are getting unloaded. Like I said, it's just a long time just even getting down there. It's a little cloudier now. We're closer to the rainy season this time. We did have some rain that went through one day, and it was just probably 10, 15 minutes of just straight downpour, and then it was gone. But yeah, we're getting up close to the rainy season. So it was a little cooler, which was nicer. This is the landing strip area, which lands you right at the Rockview Lodge. So it's really nice. You get off the plane and you're going here, which is the Rockview Lodge. This is kind of the eating area. And we do meet up there. They didn't quite have our rooms ready. When we got there, they had people there, so we sat down and had a little bit of coffee. But this is the Banab place. It's kind of in between where the rooms and beds are at. We usually kind of do our meetings there. And that first day that we were there, we got into our rooms and then we went to the Quatamong Church to get it set up for the clinic. And this is the Quatamong Church building. This is a couple Sundays before, I think Mark said, where they had the church there. And it's had about 100 people, he says. So this is kind of the building that we used. They were nice enough to remove all the seats for us, but we had to set it up for the clinic. So I asked them, because we were getting a little room to, in case you needed privacy, set up and had some sheets set up, but I asked them for a ladder because they were trying to set up boards for us, which didn't quite work with what we needed, so I had to redo it, but that's the ladder they gave me. I don't know if you can see it, but it's just kind of some trees with some branches, all nailed together. And we had a few people very worried, 3 people footing the ladder for me there. Yeah, this ain't bad. Yeah. So this is more after it, the next day. Top left corner would be our pharmacy area. That was where the magic happened. And so then the bottom right is, I think the first day there, they would come in kind of where the big open doors are at there after they had already checked in, and we would go by the order they came. And to the left, they would see the nurses there, and the nurses would give them the checkup and everything, and then they have their 3 doctors in the white chairs up here, and they would do just check everything else that kind of the nurses found and that they had their complaints for. And then after that, back in the upper right corner was the pharmacy, and on the right also there's a door there, and they would kind of shuffle through that way and go out, and they'd be able to give them their medication, and Caitlin was there on the right to give them glasses or the hygiene stuff. A few more shots of us in action. It's always so cute to see the little kids. There must be like a time in their age where I think it must be school, but that they're required to sit down and be quiet and, not move around much. You see the really little ones, they'll be running all over the place and the parents don't care. Yeah. And then later on, they're perfect. They just sit there, they're quiet, and it's amazing. And then it's hard to kind of talk to them and get them to, open up to you, but once they do, it's awesome. And Bridget's favorite thing was giving them all a little piece of candy. That's always a good opener. So one thing I was able to do too at the pharmacy was do blood sugar checks. Kind of allowed the nurses to not have to do that stuff. So there's quite a few actually that had high blood sugar, and then we'd be able to give them some medication for that. But also, once they found that out, they could, seek more of that medication later. They do have the clinic, like they say in Lethem, just usually travel is difficult to get stuff there and get people there. This is the banob that everyone usually waits out under for when they're coming in for the clinic. And also, after each day, we would have a worship or lesson. The first day we got there, Mark was told, I think, 5 minutes before the lesson was supposed to be done that he was doing the lesson. He thought that someone else was going to do the lesson. And he was like, all right, well, did a great job. I wouldn't expect anything less, but goes to show, like, always be prepared to preach the word and give a lesson. One of the days while we were there, Mark's church all the kids had done some pictures of their faces and colored some different things, and then on the back they had like a memory verse, and they were giving it to each one of the children there. And this is Mark doing that. It's super cute. And then while we were down there, I had to throw this in there for Birdie. I'm sure she loves it. But Birdie turned 18. And it was super nice of them, the people that we were staying with. They set up this thing for her and made her a cake. They don't normally make cakes, I don't think, for birthdays. So it was just kind of to, our practices and what we do. And it was kind of funny because it was almost like a fruit cake. They just don't know what to make, so they made something. I don't know how much Bridget liked it, but but it was the thought that counted. It was awesome. Yes, it was, I love some ways that it translates to when they write their little thing, like the dessert. But after our time there, we spent 2 days there at the Quatamong, or 2.5. 2.5 days there. So we did a half day, and then at lunchtime, there wasn't too many people, or there wasn't any more people coming in at that point. And so also, I guess during those 2.5 days, like I said, 2 of the doctors went out and did home visits, which was, it was a great We did the staff that was at the people we were staying with, and then they went around to some of the people that weren't able to make it to the clinic. There were some people that really needed some major medical attention, and they were able to get that, but they had to, I think they had to go to a hospital in Brazil, or I don't know. They came and picked them up in the ambulance, I'm pretty sure, because it was pretty bad. There was a lady that I think she had diabetes, and if you get like injuries on your foot or anything, you don't feel those. And so her foot was in a kind of a bad way. So good that she came to see him so that she could get that taken care of. So, back here, I guess, we traveled that afternoon from Anai down to Letham, when we drove that distance. It's probably a little 2 to 3 hours. The road conditions were really good. I guess we found out that they're planning on paving that road all the way from Letham to Georgetown. So they were kind of doing some work on the road, but the road conditions that we have had in previous missions, if it's rained or eroded the road at all, it can get really bad, and it's a really slow trip. But this one was really good, and we were able to go without any issues. So we came down to Letham, and we stayed in another hotel there, and then the next day we came to the Mokomoko Church and spent a day there. So this is the Mokomoko Church. It's a place just outside of Letham there. I don't remember how long it takes to kind of get there. It's like 30 minutes or so. But the building was much bigger, a little easier to work with. Had to deal with a lot of wind coming through, but they kind of all sit under this tree here waiting. We saw, I think, about 90 patients in about 4 hours or so, or a little under 4 hours. As you can see, a lot more space and room. And kind of the same system set up where they would go through the nurses to the doctors over to pharmacy and out. A lot more families with children, it seemed like, at this village. I think that's why it was such a big number, was because of the amount of children. It seemed like 5, 6 people in one. There's Brian doing some of his magic tricks. So every time you'd see like a little child or baby, it was hard not to want to hold them. I don't know if I have it in here, but Sunil, one of our drivers down there, and he's married to Jessica, who is from Mokomoko, just had a new little one, Miles. Yeah, and he was about 9 months. I hope I have a picture in here of him, but he was super cute. Like I say, we didn't get to go down last year, so we didn't even know. It's a nice surprise. The one on the left there with Angie, he was like glued to her side. Every time she was around, he would be sitting with her always. She called him her little bro. So this is Linda Moses. She is kind of, she is the one that's influential in starting this whole mission. I guess Mark tells a story of that he went down there for an evangelistic trip and met her, and she had a black eye and she had seizures, and it was since she was 6 months old, she had malaria. And he asked her about medication for seizures, and she said, well, some months I have it, some months I don't. And he came back and kind of told that story, and that's when John Adams heard that and said, I can get her medication. It's cheap and easily available. And so he did a trip down with Mark and gave her 2 years supply of the seizure medication. And that's kind of how the whole thing started. They were like, we could do this and do this for a lot more people down here that need this medical attention, because as Mark says, it's something, it's so expensive for them to get something like that, even like the toothbrush, toothpaste, and soap, that you have to make decisions in life. Do you get that medication, or do you buy food for the family? Do you get, brush your teeth with, toothbrush, or, buy food for the family? So it's a lot of decisions like that are made, and usually it's buying food for the family and not the other, so. And Sigmund Moses, he's one of the preachers down there that goes to the school with Mark. And they were able to raise money and funds to be able to get him. They were having difficulties with transportation from the Woweta village over to different places like the Quatamong, and getting them there. And funds were raised so that he could get a van down there for transportation. And that was one of the major things that they were able to raise money for. Yeah. And there was other things that were raised for too, like medications. Since COVID did hit and we weren't able to go down there last year, a lot of the medications expired that they weren't expecting. They were expecting to be able to use them. And it was kind of closer to last minute, and they were able to raise money for that to get medication for this trip. So that was a huge thing as well. Blessing, yeah. This is the school and the clinic. Afterwards, when we got done with Mocha Mocha, we brought the rest of the things back here. Brian got to visit with a lot of people that he knew around there then, and a little bit, and before we left. He said he felt bad because he knows everybody around that area, but it's such a quick trip. It's hard to spend time being able to go visit. We did get a fun day after that. We went to Kuma Falls. It was about a half day. We all jumped into the back. Mark has a truck down there now. That was something that they were able to purchase as well for transportation. And we all loaded up in the back of the truck, drove down there. To be able to go out to Kuma Falls, it's in one of the villages, you have to have one of their members take you through as a guide. Probably because so nobody trashes the place. But the first house that we went to, the lady was like, yeah, I'll have my daughter go. So, I mean, this young girl, 15, 16 years old, she brought a friend with her who was 15, 16-year-old, jumps in this truck with Americans, and just drives off to this Kuma Falls. I'm like, oh my goodness, I would not do that with my child. But it was fun. They were able to guide us up there and guide us back. And it was funny because on our way back, we were a little bit hungry. I was handing out some snacks, and I asked them if they wanted some. And so I gave them some, and there were these bars that I really didn't like that they grabbed. So I felt bad giving them that. So I gave them some ones that I knew were good. And so they had 2 bars each. And we got all the way back to the house and, dropped them off, and we were kind of giving them some money for thanking them for taking us up there. And she goes, can I have more snacks? I was like, yeah, sure. Here you go. It's kind of funny. I could just see my daughter saying that same thing. Have more snacks? And just Kuma Falls, a beautiful waterfall that you're able to walk up to, and then has this little area where you can kind of swim at. Helping Chris down there, behind the waterfall there. I think that's the other, the guide's friend there in the right picture in the lower left. This was something to me that, I mean, was heartbreaking while we were down there. They had people on the street that were selling wear, usually like necklaces, bracelets, all that kind of stuff, but they were, what I'm told, from Venezuela. And so they had a lot of people that were escaping from Venezuela to go to Guyana, which, you know, should kind of tell you something. They're escaping somewhere to come to Guyana, which is already a poor area, and that's better than where they were at. But they're still out there working. They're out there trying to make money for their family. I mean, there was a lot of the ladies like this with their young children. I mean, 2, 3, you know, young children with them, or just the young children in general that were out there trying to sell wear. And it broke my heart one night when we were eating, and some of the kids came in trying to sell us wear, and they asked if they could eat what we had left over on the table. And it was, I mean, it hits you to your core when it's like, that's hunger. We don't know hunger, but yeah. So it was difficult. So after Mokomoko, we chartered another plane, which flew us back to Georgetown. And then from there, we were able to take the long flight home. Just amazing, some of the people you meet and just the attitudes that they have. And, you know, you learn so much that it doesn't matter about what you have. It's just you can be happy in where you're at, and you can make the most and best of where you're at. And all of them have just these great, happy personalities, and, you know, they don't have anywhere near what we have, and they're always very hard workers. The one on the upper right there, he traveled from a long ways just to come and do the Bible studies and the lessons. He was hitting me hard with some questions about marriage, divorce, and remarriage, which I tried to answer and then directed him towards Mark. But yeah, so, but definitely it's just about the people, and you make connections, and they.
I mean, he read off about 5 or 6 different names, and in the middle of that was Quasimodo. I'm going to call you Quasimodo.
Well, there was one of the kids, they said SpongeBob. And I was like, SpongeBob, and everybody laughs. And I don't think that's his real name, but that's his nickname, apparently. So I'd be able to call him SpongeBob. In the upper right is Amit's wife and daughter. He's one that we usually have drive us around, but he was busy on this trip. He was able to drive us from Anai to Letham, and I think to the airport. He gave us a ride there, but not able to spend as much time with us. But his wife and daughter were able to stop by one night. We were able to meet and talk with them, and it was awesome because she was much, much smaller the last time I saw her. And she is talkative. So some of the needs met down there. We were able to support some of the preachers down there. Like I said, the vehicle that they were able to get for transportation for the people from Woweta. The money for the medications that were over the counter and miscellaneous items. And then some of the Bibles and commentaries, somebody provided that. And lots of prayers for the people. I mean, even while we were there, the guy that owns the Rockview, his nephew was injured very badly, and we were able to offer lots of prayers for him and his nephew. I haven't heard, but I mean, in only down there, he had his arm bit by a caiman. It was bit off from below the elbow, and then they had to amputate to above the elbow.
So you guys didn't go swimming in the falls?
We did. We actually did, but we checked for caiman first. Yeah, made sure there's no eyeballs sticking at the top. There's actually these little fish in there that like bite on you. That was kind of scary. Make you go, yeah, I don't want to be in there anymore. But that was the trip. Some of the needs that I know that we had talked about coming up. We're planning a trip next March. It's going to be a little bit more of a rural trip, going back to some of the villages that were more off the path there. But sunglasses, glasses that certain prescriptions, like the lower prescription ones, they're the ones that they have a lot. Eye drops and kids' vitamins, but not the gummy vitamins. We had a really bad experience with that and trying to keep them cold and becoming one big glob of gummy. So if you can find them, it would be like the Flintstone vitamins. But our hope was now we would try to transport stuff down in those totes, but that we would start sending it to Brian Hall, and he has the ability to ship stuff down there. So if we find that need, I'm trying to be in touch more with Mark and Angie about those needs, and then I would bring them forth here so that we could help in any way that we could, so that we could get them to Brian and he could get that stuff shipped down there. So, but yeah.
Did you guys notice, seeing, I think you mentioned that 1 gallon of baby that had grown, but did you guys notice this kind of the same people, you developed the relationships and having to see you kind of thing?
Oh, yeah. It was awesome. I didn't get the picture of Jessica and her little one up there, but I've got tons more pictures at home if anybody's interested in seeing more about it. And I didn't want to put too many pictures up there and spend too much time. I could spend a long time.
For the pharmaceuticals, does Angie and Mark and whoever's in charge of that, do they buy the drugs local from the Guyanese market or the Brazil market, or did it come from the US?
Sometimes they do. I mean, Chris can probably speak more to that if you want to.
They do them both if they know ahead of time what's short, because it takes about 3 to 4 months to ship it, because it has to go by boat. In the short term, you can go across the border into Brazil and local purchase a lot of stuff that we use in Brazil. But if we know ahead of time, they can ship it. But Brian is associated with a group called Go Preach the Word, and he's been shipping Bible materials and Bibles and songbooks and stuff for years down there. He's got Sunil as his contact. He ships it down there, and Sunil picks it up from the dock and then distributes it to the interior wherever they need it.
So I know for the Baja trip we're making, they've got a clinic at the church building there, and they started bringing medicine supplies from the US, but you can get them cheaper. American medicine you can get cheaper there in Mexico, plus the Mexican government was a little bit kind of restrictive on what they could do, but once they found they were getting the tax dollars from being purchased within Mexico, then it opened up once they started getting the tax base for it, so it just made it easier to purchase everything down there.
We almost didn't get our hygiene kits through customs. There's been a change in the government, and before it hadn't been an issue, but this time they said there's way too many. It's too much like commercial. They were going to charge us a tariff and all stuff to bring it into the country. But I'm not sure what all transpired, but eventually they relented and let us in. So in the future, those things, one of the reasons we're shipping stuff through, going to be shipping it through Brian, so we don't have that, because he's got the connections already set up for his stuff to go through.
So I guess my wife just told me that Stephen Conwit crashed on his motorcycle and hurt his, or not motorcycle, mountain bike, hurt his hip. So just something, prayers for Harborview. Yeah. So just prayers for him. Stephen Conwit crashed on his mountain bike and hurt his hip, and I guess he's going to Harborview. So just prayers for him. But getting stopped there, and I had the tote there, and I didn't even know really what was in it. I mean, I knew it was stuff for the mission, but they go, "What's in it?" And I go, "Supplies for our medical mission." And then he's like, "Well, let's open up." I'm like, "Well, let's open up and see what it is," you know? So open it up, and it's those hygiene kits. And he goes, "Oh, this is way too much. This is like commercial amount." And I go, "You got paperwork for this?" And like, "Well, we're taking it on a medical mission, giving it to people." And he goes, "Well, I see that you're got it all prepackaged and stuff, and I need to know who you're meeting out here." So I had to go talk to our driver that was out there and bring him back and kind of show him our thing from Mark, which was a letter that stated what we were doing and where we were going. And he was like, "Well, I'll let you go this time, but next time you need to have your paperwork in order." And I'm like, "Okay." So yeah, so that kind of sparked us doing it a different way, I think, this next time, because it sounds like they're getting a little bit more stringent. So that's everything that I've got. Like I said, hopefully I can give more updates of what needs are, and we can kind of keep supplying that, but then also preparing for next March.